Welcome to MOTN Reads. This is Masters of the Nerdiverse Reads, where we take a look at the hottest comics coming out on the shelves, and I'll give you my hot take on if the comic is purchasable or not. I'm, of course, your host, Mike G, and I am here today to talk about The House of X Issue 2, written by Jonathan Hickman, with art by Pepe Larraz. This comic book is groundbreaking. I try to not use so much hyperbole when I actually think of these hot takes. And I originally read this book the other day, yesterday actually, and I wanted to do my hot take on the day, but I really needed a moment to really digest what this book was laying down in regards to what Jonathan Hickman is attempting to tell us throughout the pages of this issue. This is a very, I would say, kind of like a side issue, but it adds so much to kind of where the story is going to be headed and what's going to be important to the story. And of course, there's no spoilers, so you don't have to worry about me letting too much go. But I will say that this story is in regards to the life of Moira McTaggart. And that may not be a name that is overly familiar to comic book fans or X-Men fans, but Moira McTaggart has been integral to an extent to the X-Men lore since, I would say, their inception, back when Stan Lee was helping write them. And this comic is all about her. It's all about her life and kind of how she's affected the X-Men universe going forward. Now, I would say, like I mentioned earlier, that this comic book changes things. It changes things so much that it's actually rewired the way I think about the X-Men and what the X-Men have been through over all these years, all these decades. Moira has actually played some parts. It's really hard to talk about this comic without spoiling it. But what I will say is that after you're done reading this, you too will have your eyes opened to what could possibly be going on in the future of the X-Men. It talks about Moira kind of being more of a wide-eyed wanderer, I would say. Her experiences with Charles Xavier, of course, Professor X, because that is to whom he normally reaches out to when he's trying to get a better understanding of the full scope of a mutant's power. So in the comics before, he would reach out to Moira McTaggart if he had a student at the Xavier School of the Gifted Youngsters that he just didn't have a good grip on what their full extent was. So he would take the children to Mirror Island, which is where Moira McTaggart and her son Proteus would live, and he would pretty much get the 411 on what's this child's mutation, just so I can meld my education and meld their training more toward their strengths. So we're not just kind of throwing darts in a phone book. If it wasn't readily obvious, like Iceman makes ice, yeah, but how do you explain a child like Cypher? For those that's a X-Men pull there. But the real question is, would I recommend this comic? I am absolutely spellbound by what Jonathan Hickman is actually wanting to do with the X-Men. If it's any indication between House of X issue 1 and Powers of 10 is what we're calling it, issue 1, in this book, is that he is going to pretty much create a kaleidoscope of X-Men experiences and pretty much dilute them and just rebuild them. It's just a complete dissection of X-Men lore, and I highly recommend that you read this book. And of course, with Hickman, he's really good at giving everyone something to kind of latch on to. There's really powerful moments in this book. This book alone is probably one of the best comics I've read in a very long time. In a vacuum, from page 1 to the end page, it's just a poignant telling of this character's story and just opening your eyes to what Moira McTaggart's all about. And I can't recommend this higher. Definitely pick up this series while it's still early on, and definitely jump in, because if you're an X-Men fan, this has me so excited for the future of the X-Men on multiple levels and kind of what they're going to be doing going forward. If you like this content, you can always please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. Hit the notification bell on our YouTube page, which is YouTube.com/MOTN, I believe. And you'll be able to follow us and be up to date with these hot takes, with these reads. I'm, of course, been your host, Mike G, and I will always ask you to support your local comic book store. Support them now.